Is it time to be nervous about Jalen Hurts as the Philadelphia Eagles' long-term franchise quarterback? We'll get into it, plus stock up, stock down, coming your way.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome into a Tuesday edition of the show. I'm Louis DiBiase, joined as always by my co-host, Gino Camilleri. We're brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're continuing to recap the Eagles' thrilling 15-12 win in New Orleans on Sunday to improve to 2-1 on the season. A last-minute drive to score a go-ahead touchdown. Saquon Barkley gets in the end zone the second time of the day. Reed Blankenship caps things off with his second interception in 3 weeks. Gino, for Jalen Hurts, as we always start stock up, stock down, we start with the quarterback stock watch. For Jalen, it was kind of the tale of two halves again, right? I mean, the turnovers and bad spots continued, but then he became a hero that elevated his team and looked like a franchise quarterback in the second half. But the turnovers are still there, as we mentioned in yesterday's show. For you, are you getting nervous with the continuation of this problem? Are you getting nervous about the long-term standing of Jalen as the franchise quarterback?
No, I am not. I'm concerned with the turnovers. Like it's definitely an issue. But let's just do a little blind resume real quick, Lou. I got two players for you. One is accounted for 772 yards, while the other 659. One completion percentage is 70.6, the other 69.9. One CPOE is 7.6, while the other's is negative 2.4. One is accounted for 4 total touchdowns, the other for 5. And both have 4 interceptions. One has a dropback EPA of 9.1, the other 5.5. And the last statistic, air yards per attempt, 7.3 and 4.6. I'm sure you could figure that one of them is Jalen Hurts, but do you happen to know who that other player is, Lou?
Is it Mahomes?
That is Patrick Mahomes, folks. And box score scouting, like it can get you into a lot of trouble. And Pat Mahomes, he has multiple Super Bowl trophies. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is you can get really caught up in narratives really quickly when it comes to the quarterback.
Do you think
position.
the turnover problems, it's just a narrative though with Jalen? I don't think it is.
I think there are
it's
a lot
real
of
problem this year. I think last year it could have been a narrative, but the turnovers this year, man, I don't know if I agree. Like they're in bad spots and it's getting worse.
The Devontae Smith one. See, the turnovers, I can make cases for the interceptions. The Devontae Smith one, should he have ran that route a little flatter across face? Well, you have a safety who's looking down at the quarterback. Kellen Moore even talked about that in his press conference just a little bit ago. It definitely could have been one of those things that, is it the wide receiver? Is it the quarterback? The one to A.J. Brown where he slips in the end zone. Could he have made a play on Jair Alexander? The one thing that is concerning is the fumbles. That cannot happen. When you're behind the line of scrimmage, you have to take care of the ball more than ever because you're not past the line of scrimmage where there are guys downfield. It's you and nobody else. So if you lose that ball, Jalen Hurts, you're lucky that wasn't a return the other way. But what he does in the pocket, Lou, we've been waiting for this type of player.
I totally agree with that.
What can he do outside of the pocket? When he flashes and does the things you want to see, it is pretty. But when it gets ugly, it's only like 2 to 3 times a game.
But
if
it's
it
in
was
such bad spots.
It's
man.
in
that's what I'm getting nervous.
That is the tough spot. You're not going to win Super Bowls with that type of outing every single week.
That's my point.
He's got to reel it in at some point.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that I'm getting nervous that Jalen is going to have a Carson Wentz 2020 like plummet. I don't think he'll, unless there's injuries, Gino, I don't think he'll ever plummet like that from a production standpoint. I think he'll always be top tier when it comes to yardage totals, when it comes to rushing, when it comes to touchdowns overall, when it comes to winning football games. Like I think Jalen Hurts will always be up there. I don't think he'll ever give the Eagles a reason to say he's just so bad that we have to get him out of here. But what I'm nervous about is if the turnovers continue in these really bad spots, as good as he is in pretty much every area, like you're saying, including the pocket and against the blitz, like he was great against the blitz again, you still cannot win a Super Bowl with the way he's playing when it comes to the mistakes. Like, no quarterback has more turnovers since 2023 than Jalen Hurts. He has 26 takeaways in 21 games. Like, as good and as elite as everything else is about his game, if the Eagles want to be elite, if Jalen Hurts wants to win championships, like he said, like, money is nice, but championships are better. If he wants that, then he has to stop this because it's going to kill this football team.
It puts your defense in such a difficult position, much like that Saints game where they're on the field just time after time after time. You look back to the Atlanta game, it's like, can we just give the ball to the offense again? Green Bay, same thing. And a lot of it stems from your quarterback, and you're the most important player on the field because you are the most important player at that position in the world. Like, there's only 32 of these guys that do it, right? So everything is under such a microscope. But I want to take a step back and look at the rest of the league. How much better is it outside?
But just because the rest of the league is also making mistakes doesn't mean it's okay for Jalen, though.
But like
that's my point.
Are his high moments way better than a lot of the guys that are making those mistakes?
Absolutely.
And that's the thing.
Yeah,
are you
Jalen
willing
Hurts is
to
an
live
elite
with
football player.
Are you willing to live with a lesser player that makes mistakes or a better player that makes mistakes? But it can't be a problem. It can't be one of those things that you shake off and say, I'm going to just throw an interception every single week. It has to stop.
This is in year 2. If this continues in 2025, 2026, even if he never has a Wentz-like plummet, eventually, yeah, the Eagles will,
definitely,
if this problem is not solved, even with as productive as he is, they will probably consider other options. But I do think it's going to get fixed, and he is just so damn good, though, in every other area. Like, he's completing 70.6% of his passes right now. That's the highest through 3 weeks for an Eagles quarterback since 1992. He's the only Eagles quarterback ever to have back-to-back games where he threw over 30 times and completed over 75% of his passes. Like, that game-winning drive, he was 2 for 3 for 66 yards. In the fourth quarter, he was 7 of 10 for 112, a 107 rating. Like, he's clutch. He called audibles at the line. Like, he's the reason that Goddard pass was so wide open. He called the audible, man coverage, dialed up that mesh concept. Like, he's growing in so many areas that's why I'm not getting worried about him long term. But I'm worried about this one problem in a vacuum under the microscope, because he can win us a championship if he just stops this, because we're seeing it's really his only problem of his game right now, but it is a big problem.
I keep going back to the Josh Allen and I think it's really on par with how well Josh Allen performed in that football game on Monday night. Josh wasn't always perfect. He was a guy who started and had a bunch of turnovers. Jalen, he took care of the football early on, and he's kind of developed this habit. Josh Allen, he got out of that habit, went back into that habit, now he's back out of it again. So quarterbacks, a lot of it is dictated on the environment that they're in. And coaching, I think Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni, they, more than anybody, have to do a really good job of identifying those areas, those times when Jalen does like to get out of structure. How can we teach him to get out of that? But there is a point, like you said, in 2025, 2026, those teaching points, you're not going to be able to continue to teach
not
this
when you're
player.
in year 6, year 7.
Exactly. And you're not getting out of that contract right now like Russell Wilson with Denver. That's not what we're talking about at all. We're saying you foundationally have set this team up around Jalen Hurts and the rest of this offense that is here through 2028. Right. You don't want that problem to continue, because you don't want to have to go into your house and realize 1/4 of the foundation was ripped apart by termites, something that we probably could have got to the root cause of a couple of years ago. And I'm with you, man. Like, he's so good in these areas where you're saying, if you just play a clean game, people are going to see how good that great is.
He's 4th in the league in passing yards. I mean, every EPA statistic looks great. And he used to be a safe player. That's why it's so frustrating.
And where did this come from?
Like, just stop throwing picks, and you're one of the best players in the world. And that's the frustrating part, Like, he was never this guy before last year. And that's why I'm frustrated at coaching, because I think coaching is a huge part of this. The constant change, the lack of development skills for your head coach and quarterback, like, that is a huge part of why I think he's taken a step back in that regard.
Is it on him to continue to make the best choices for the team as well? Absolutely. And I think he more than anybody understands that. But the one thing about learning with Jalen Hurts, it's kind of always been when we say he can't do something, he goes ahead and he kind of proves us wrong every single time, right? It was like, can he develop into a pure pocket passer? Well, look at the last couple of years. He's been excellent in the pocket over the last few years. Can he be a guy that sees the field from more than just one read, who doesn't just take off at first glance of pressure? He's still learning in these regards, but he's shown growth. And I think the most recent one is, can he take on coverage assignments? Can he take on blocking assignments and audible at the line? And he's taking on all of these in stride. So who's to say that he can't do it? It can't be one of those things that you put off, and then all of a sudden it's a huge problem that you can't come back from.
Yeah, you can't be Carson Wentz in year 6 saying, I got to fix the turnovers, and you just say it over and over
coming
and over
to the podium every week speaking
and
insanity.
It's like, yeah, we know, man. Like, we can see it. And that's the thing with Jalen, is eventually it's got to be done on the field and less about talking about it. But at the same time, he was incredible again on Sunday, and that's why you want to keep giving him every opportunity to fix this problem, because if he does, he's one of the best players in the world. So I would still say stock up for Jalen after that win. Like, you do not win that game without Hurts. He's, unlike a lot of players, overcoming these mistakes that he makes. Saquon Barkley said it himself. He's never seen a player this poised in his entire career. And so I'm not worried about Jalen being the franchise quarterback, but I'm just worried this problem could hold them back from winning a championship, right? I think they are always going to make the playoffs with this guy, but winning a title is what it's all about.
And just like everybody else on this roster, nobody has played a perfect game. There's not one person, not one coach. Nobody has been perfect for this team, right? Even Saquon Barkley in the biggest moment, they all make mistakes. But how do you rebound, Lou? That's our talking point for 2024. How do they rebound from adversity? I've seen Jalen do it. He did it in this game a couple days ago. I mean, the first 2 drives were not great. And then all of a sudden, when it mattered, when he couldn't get it done the week before, when that thought in the back of everybody's mind, oh, what was the most recent thing? That gets 99 out of 100 of us to falter in that moment. That team responded. They're still behind him 100%. You could see how he leads in the huddle. You could see how the guys respond to him. I'm still riding with him no matter what. Yeah, the grass can always look greener. Like, am I a Justin Herbert guy? Yeah, for sure, but he can't stay healthy. Joe Burrow, Bengals are 0-3 right now. Trevor Lawrence looks like a disaster at the current point in time. So is the grass always greener? Not always. I'll still ride with Jalen Hurts until he goes off that Carson Wentz cliff. But let's hope that, like a herd of cows, he can realize we don't need to go over this cliff, boys. We got everything we need.
Stock up coming up next after an Eagles 15-12 win over New Orleans. This is the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs makes you hire for your small business faster and with better quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They have the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team fast and for free. They're not just a job board. They help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong spot. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Gino, time now for stock up, and I think there were a lot of positives to take from the Saints win. And that's the thing. We talked so much about Jalen's turnovers and Nick Sirianni's in-game decision-making, and of course those are worthy talking points because the Eagles this year are supposed to be a Super Bowl contender, and those problems could hold them back. But at the same time, that was such a massive win on the road, dealing with so much adversity against a really good team. You now have beaten 2 pretty solid teams, I would say, in the NFC. You should be 3-0. Atlanta was a quality opponent, too, that you lost. Really, they didn't win. So I think it was a positive in the right direction, and especially for the defense. Like, I think most of our stock ups are going to come from that side of the ball.
Yeah, just an exceptional game overall. And Vic Fangio deserves a boatload of credit for how he got those guys ready to go. And we were saying, can this team win games because of that defense? And after the first 2 weeks, it had looked like no. And they got guys to step up, and not just one, not just two. I mean, you're talking 11 plus guys on that defensive side of the ball. Even rotational players looked excellent.
And I think the number one guy we got to talk about, stock up to Jalen Carter. Like, Gino, this was a vintage, like prime Fletcher Cox, prime Aaron Donald, Chris Jones like performance, where almost every play he is disrupting the play in the backfield, whether it's against the run, whether it's getting pressures on Derek Carr. He impacted 18 of 51 total snaps by getting into the backfield. He was the number one graded defensive tackle among everybody in the NFL. That was the best game of his career so far. That's the Jalen Carter that we said heading into the year the Eagles need, especially at this edge group. Like, that was a generational game. He wrecked that ball game.
We were just waiting for him to turn it on. And he had said the first couple weeks he had played like trash. He even said that after this game, he had played like trash. The dude is a dog. Like, he wants to be great. Like, you can hear it in every time he talks. He kind of knows how good he is. He just needs to keep it on all the time.
They need him.
People getting mad about him getting frustrated at the end of the game.
I loved that. What do you mean?
Nobody likes us. We don't care. Like, where did that Eagles
He's
team
a villain.
go?
It's so fun having a villain on our team. And that Saints team had dirty hits all game. They're talking smack. I love Jalen Carter not being able to be contained. Like, that's unbelievable to me. I think it's great.
It would be one thing if he just had like a terrible game and like he's getting frustrated, but no, he dogged.
He earned
good
that.
Good players, man. Like, Cesar Ruiz is a good guard and made him look not so great. And Eric McCoy, before he goes out of that game, a very good center. All of a sudden, he doesn't look so great. And it was because Jalen Carter was winning fast. He was winning violently. That club, that arm over. It's just a vicious combination that he could put together. His foot fire is so fast. His leverage is unbelievable. How did the Eagles get this guy? Like, how did 8 teams pass him up? Like, I don't care. I don't care what the off-field concerns were. Everybody has off-field concerns, but you can't teach this type of talent, man.
No, this is a generational player. A team finally allowed him to have one-on-one matchups in a game, and it just wasn't close. I mean, that's the thing is, I thought Carter played okay through the first 2 games, but he was facing so many double teams, as he should, that he really wasn't able to have much of an impact compared to last year. Then he finally got some one-on-ones against Ruiz, who's, like you said, a good player, but you can't put a guard one-on-one with Jalen Carter. You just can't. And I think it helped everybody else. And your first stock up is the linebackers behind him. I thought Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean had a great day. 21 combined tackles. Like, Gino, that's becoming a strong TJ Edwards, Kazir White like duo where you're not winning because of those guys a lot of the time, but man, they just don't miss tackles and they're just always reliable.
The thing you need with linebackers is to allow everybody else to do their job. And that's tough because if the guys up front don't do their job, now the linebackers are put in a really precarious position.
You could say the same thing behind them too, right?
Yeah, and things get really magnified, and especially over the last couple of years, Lou, like when that front isn't playing great, 2023, look at how susceptible the linebackers were. They weren't of the talent of Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean when healthy, but it just goes to show you that when these guys are playing well and when they can fill gaps and keep things from spilling out to the edge and they can tackle in the open field, Nakobe Dean is seeing the field exceptionally quick. And Bond, what he is able to do, you just see him on tape and you have to account for him on offense every single play. Why? Because he can do everything for this Eagles defense. And I think you and we got a lot of slack for saying we don't think that Bond should be the starter. And it was because they only showed us a glimpse of what he was going to do for this team.
And it was justified at the time, Gino. Like, it's not like this was the expectation.
No, absolutely not. But in the preseason, they only played him as a legitimate Mike linebacker, green dot.
They weren't using him the way they are now.
No, he is a rover. He's on the edge. He's in the A gap. He's in the secondary. He's making tackles in the open field when it matters. He's allowing everybody up front to play better too because of these quick little. They moved him from, at one point, they were playing a 5 down front. It was Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond. And then they rotate Bond down to the line. So they get 6 guys on the line, 1 Mike backer. Now the offense, they're like, okay, now we have to change our protections at the line of scrimmage. And then they send him off the edge to rush, but there will be times when he pops back into coverage. And now all of a sudden the offensive assignments are going to change when it comes to blocking. That's what good linebacking play has to do. I think the linebackers, running backs don't matter. The wheels turning the other way. It's starting to go back to the middle of 1980s football. We're getting closer and closer to that by the day.
And I think stock up to the guys behind them too. The secondary, Gino, was on one. I think we're back. Like the secondary of 2023, I think it's gone. Darius Slay looks back. Quinyon Mitchell looks like the defensive rookie of the year. Avonte Maddox has put together 2 back-to-back solid days in coverage against the Falcons and the Saints. Reed Blankenship is the 3rd highest ranked safety of anybody, according to PFF. I mean, they've allowed, I don't think people know this, the Eagles have allowed the lowest completion percentage in the league so far through three weeks at a 57.3% percentage. Like, Rashid Shaheed was the best deep threat through the first 2 weeks. He had almost 200 yards on just 7 catches. Like, he was averaging 24 yards a catch. You know, he was held to nothing on Sunday. Like, that secondary, Quinyon, Slay, Maddox, DeJean, Blankenship, CGJ is the heartbeat of that unit. I mean, they have not been a problem through 3 games. The defense has given up yardage, but I don't think it has to do with the secondary at all, really.
Are you ready to say the no-fly zone is back?
I think 2022, we're back, man. Like, it looks lockdown. Quinyon Mitchell,
he's good.
I mean, it's not, we say it every week, but he now is... He's 2nd among all corners in forcing completions. He leads all rookies. He's 3rd among all DBs. I can't believe, we say it every week, but I cannot believe they got him at pick 20.
And a healthy Slay. He's a good football player, man. He had just
textbook that deep route
positional
on
footwork, man. It was gorgeous.
Big spot, too.
Reed Blankenship, Lou DiBiase jinxed the heck out of this guy. He is a big-time player, big-time plays, and big-time moments. You talk about two game-sealing interceptions now in the 2 games. When you go and scout a game, you turn on 3rd down, 4th down. When do these guys make plays? Reed Blankenship, he might not be a 5-star recruit. He might not be a number 1 pick. But boy, he's a damn good football player who knows where to be and makes game-changing plays. All the while, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, this guy's energy, man, I love it so much.
That interview after the game,
it's beautiful.
Phenomenal.
It's beautiful. This is what football is. This is what the NFC East is. Remember the days of Jimmy Johnson saying, Buddy Ryan won't walk his fat rear end out here and shake my hand. This is what our mothers and fathers were.
Dude, he's in somebody's face every play. It is so much fun to watch. Like, I miss Chauncey Gardner-Johnson so much.
We miss that energy, man. It's so evident.
Him and Carter together, like, you need some
dogs.
You need some scumbags on your team, man. Like,
what did Brandon Graham say? They want a puppy, but we gave him a big dog.
He said she don't want no puppy, she want a big dog.
Yeah, man. That's the quote.
Stock up to Brandon Graham, Gino. I mean, BG, he leads the Eagles in pressure rate through 3 weeks, right? So the Saints actually ran at him, I think it was 8 times, 8 first down rushes against BG, only a 1.4 yard per carry average. He's the one that hit Derek Carr on the Reed Blankenship pick. Like, the fact that this guy's doing this 15 years in, like, I remember back in 2018, we thought he was done, right? We thought he was going to go to another team. To get 6 more productive years out of this legend, I mean, he was really good again on Sunday. BG's not getting enough credit for these first 3 games.
I think the Philadelphia Eagles should pay a pension to the Graham family. I think they should pay for both of his children to go to college. I think they should cover his insurance for the rest of his life because he's somebody that has been underpaid by this team for his entire career.
He's the most underrated player in franchise history, and it's not even close.
You go from a guy who almost walked to the Giants and they brought him back on a 1-year deal for next to nothing. And they've always underpaid Brandon Graham. They should pay for. He is the one guy I always say that is worth every cent this team has ever paid him.
And he
probably
have to
get more money too.
And Gino, he should not have to carry the unit the way he is right now. And he's still doing it. And Vic Fangio said it, like, this is not a farewell tour for him. He's going to have a big role, and he has played very well through 3
is he
games.
sure he wants to retire after this, man?
I was going to say, I might convince him to come back for year 16.
This is the Carlos Dunlap or the Dwight Freeney. Like, just sign him back. The 3/4 of the way through the season, he's still going to give you good football.
All right, Gino, your final stock up. The offensive line backups, Fred Johnson, Tyler Steen, had great days. Got to just give a shout-out, to Jeff Stoutland. I mean, having these guys ready, no matter what the situation. Most teams do not have that when it comes to, if you lose multiple starters on the offensive line, odds are 90% of teams are losing that game. But the Eagles have the best offensive line coach maybe of all time.
Maybe. I mean,
I think he is.
Dante
right?
Scarnecchia is probably like him and their 1A, 1B, like Patriots a long time offensive line coach. He's the best. And talk about a tale of two guys, man. Tyler Steen, 2nd round pick.
Good
like
for Steen, man.
Good for Steen, but even better for Fred Johnson. Fred Johnson, the way he talks about football, it'll make you appreciate it so much. He said he was so close to being out of the game. He was ready to retire, just be done playing. And then Jeff Stoutland reinvigorated him and made him realize how good he could be. The contextual aspect of this, that when Lane Johnson comes out, the Eagles can do nothing. It has been a tale as old as time for over a decade. And Tyler Steen and Fred Johnson came in, and they did not skip a single beat. This was the first time.
Blocked somebody to open up the touchdown run for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. Fred Johnson, he's the biggest offensive lineman they have. If you see pictures, he's taller than Jordan Mailata. Yeah. He's taller than Lane Johnson, and he still can move, man. There were times, combo blocks where he's getting cement feet that we were talking about the other day. He was getting up to the second level. He's had on some reach blocks. Shout out to them, man. Like, they did not handcuff this offense to make them just run to the left side, even though the numbers to the left side were egregiously successful with Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata. Shout out to Stout. Shout out Steen. Yeah. Shout out Fred Johnson. Next man up mentality. That's big win for this team.
And you guys know I'm bullish on Tyler Steen. I was on his side pretty much all offseason in that battle with Mekhi Becton. 0 pressures allowed on 35 pass blocking snaps, 0 quarterback hits, 0 sacks. I think Tyler Steen's a starter in this league. And he's
got
in
7 starters. 7.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable, but that's what happens when you don't stop investing in the trenches, and it's the smart move for the Philadelphia Eagles. Stock down coming up next as we wrap up this Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles.
As always, this Tuesday edition of LOE is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, which, of course, is America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game that the Eagles, even though they were getting beat and battered on offense, their defense kept them in it, you could check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You don't even have to leave the app. And right now, to get started, if you place a $5 bet, win or lose, you are guaranteed to get $200 in bonus bets. We're talking 40 times your money in bonus bets with a simple $5 bet. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com today to get in on the action, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. All the big four are going to be coming back soon. We're going to have the sports equinox before you know it. Never a better time to get in on the action over at FanDuel.com today.
All right, we'll wrap up this Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles with stock down after a 15-12 win over the New Orleans Saints. And, Gino, I think the two obvious ones, one player, one coach, that did not help their stock on Sunday, Nick Sirianni, Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff, it's not looking great. Yet again, 0 pressures in this football game. I thought he set the edge a little bit better against the run, especially in the first 2 quarters, but finished, again, 4th in snaps among all edge defenders, below Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, and Josh Sweat. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, Nick Sirianni said that he's excited for that big Huff game. He thinks it's coming. I hope it is. But the frustrating part isn't even just that he's not a full-time player, Gino. He's not even being the situational pass rusher that the Jets had. And that's the bigger concern is to get to make the $17 million contract worth it, he's got to be able to do everything. But the frustrating part is you're not even getting the floor of what he was in New York. Like 44 pass rush snaps on the year and just 2 pressures. Like, that's unbelievable.
When I think about this third down rotational role, I think maybe the best player in Eagles last decade or so, Chris Long. I think he was perfect in that role, right?
Yeah.
Like he might not have been an every down player, but
Right.
you knew that when he was out there, he was affecting the pocket. Like it was clear. And that's the thing with Bryce Huff. It's like when all of these guys are affecting the pocket and you're a couple pass rush reps, you're on the ground, like got to keep your feet, man. In this league, you can't be rolling around. This isn't a playpen for pigs. Like this is the National Football League. It's tough too, because I don't think Fangio is going to continue to give him opportunities. Like he whittles down his roster and his depth chart throughout the season to play the guys he wants to. I think it's a Byron Maxwell situation where the personnel staff saw one thing, the coaching staff saw another, and it just doesn't mesh. And tough. You paid him $18 million guaranteed, like for this year, and that's tough. But I don't know. I don't know how you work out of this situation unless he gains his confidence back by having that game. You just kind of continue to give him opportunities. Like I don't think you just sit him. Like that's not the way to
maybe
get him
try
going.
to use him more creative when it comes to like third down, obvious passing situations, just to get his confidence back as
in like a Bond style role.
Yeah, like maybe
how you set him up.
Exactly. Like maybe you take less pressure off his shoulders by not asking him to do as much on first and second down and just say, let's just focus on getting you back to who you were. And then once we get those building blocks established, we can then put more on your plate. Like maybe there's too much in his head. Maybe he's thinking too much about like the run.
Man. These are human beings.
Because Hassan Reddick last year had that. He didn't, there were times he's like, just let me go get the quarterback. Maybe they just need to let Bryce Huff get the quarterback. But the problem is he's not even earning those reps because in obvious passing situations, he still isn't even like beating tight ends one-on-one. So
yeah, that was a rough rep against that tight end.
I think his confidence is just shot because there's no way this talent just left his body. It's not like he's 35, 36 years old.
No, I still think when you look at how you scout a player, like the tools are all there. It's just like mentally.
Of course, that's why they signed him.
There's got to be something mentally that's going on. And
I think it's the system. I think there's too much thinking going on. I think
that's and it easily can be, man. And when you just get put in a comfortable position to make plays, like look at Bond and Kobe Dean, like they get put into a system that really helps them just play fast and play free. It's a tough transition. I mean, the Jets and the Eagles don't play the same exact setup when it comes to defense. So,
and I don't want to blame Vic Fangio by saying like you didn't put him in the right position, like he's a pass rusher, let him rush the pass, but you paid him to be an every down player, so Fangio tried to give him a chance to be that guy, right? And so I don't even want to blame Vic.
It's on Howie a little bit as well.
It was a projection signing. Yeah, they projected a one-dimensional player to become more based on a skill set. It's very similar to Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis, and right now you're not getting that return on the investment. So it's only 3 games in, but yeah, it's not looking good. And then, of course, stock down to Nick Sirianni. We've talked a lot about it over the last few shows. The only thing I want to add to it is very frustrated to hear in his press conference that he's still taking over play calling randomly. He's the one that called that fake tush push reverse to Saquon Barkley. I thought that was nipped in the butt last year where there's not 2 guys calling plays in Jalen's headset, but here we are, I think, in the same situation. Like, if you're going to call plays, call plays. If not, then give the offense to Kellen Moore like you were supposed to. Like, the middling, that bothers me so much.
I also hate that, like, we're getting pushback, that we're getting upset at the coach for not putting them in a position.
It's 100% justified. I'm not.
It's so justified,
I'm not getting off this,
man. And that moment, like, to see him. To watch that moment back where he's just walking around, he's not talking to Kellen Moore, takes his headset off so Kellen Moore can't even hear the conversation he's having with Jalen Hurts. I called plays at a freshman level last year. I would get ticked if my head coach suggested a play to me. Like, you got to be in a rhythm. This is the NFL.
That's the thing.
Just if you have a job, let the guy do the job. Like, if Kellen Moore's our OC and he's calling plays, let him call plays. If you're the guy that's going to be situationally aware, go be situationally aware. Stop being on the fence. You need to have a job description and follow the job description, because apparently you're not going to come out to the media and make it a habit to explain your decision making each and every week. But we can't point plays on what you do wrong. So how can you be held accountable for anything?
I don't know.
Wishy-washy in what your job actually is.
And yet again, everything, once he takes control of something, when he makes a fourth down decision, when he's calling plays, it doesn't seem like there's, when Andy Reid and Doug Peterson were together in Kansas City, they had a setup where it's, okay, Andy's going to call the plays, but in the 2-minute warning,
It was Doug. Yep.
it's Doug. That's an established setup. I don't think that's the case with Nick. I don't think he's the fourth down play caller or the 2-minute warning guy. I think he randomly feels a vibe and says, I want to do this, so I'm going to butt in and do it. I don't think there's a strategy to it, just like the fourth down decisions. I don't think he's listening to analytics. I think it's a hunch in his head, and that's my problem with it. That's not good.
Yeah, it's almost like when he's in the game, it's like the kid you're at a party when you're playing Pong with your buddies, like, oh, let me get a celebrity shot. It's like, no, I'm good, man. Like, you don't need to take
we're 10 rounds in. I'm finishing this game.
Yeah, let me just call the plays. Like, that's what Kellen Moore did a great job in his press conference, though, saying that he's like, I was aware of this. Like, I knew that this was going to be the setup. But to a degree, if Vic Fangio, like, all of a sudden, I can't imagine Nick calls up to him. It's like, oh, we got to do this. It's like,
right.
No, Nick, like, I'm going to call my
like,
defense.
hey, I want cover 0 all out blitz. Like, Vic, like, dial it up.
Like, Greg Williams is like,
there's
calling
no way
plays.
he'd do that.
No. And he just has to be better situationally. It's inexcusable. And I want him to be aggressive, and he is aggressive at times. It's just the reasoning behind when he is not. Like, I get, don't be conservative. Like, Doug Peterson punting to get a tie game is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, but I've continue to go for it. But
I haven't been able to rationalize any of his decisions. So
don't sell me snake oil on why you are doing this.
Yeah, don't be aggressive just to be aggressive. Like it. I think he's gone against the numbers almost every time when it comes to a fourth down decision.
The egregious one was from ESPN Next Gen Stats of not just kicking that field goal right away. Like you had 8.1% win probability. Like that changed because you didn't just kick that field goal right away. It was egregious.
Yep. So stock down to Nick Sirianni. We'll see. He's got another chance against Tampa Bay this Sunday to make better fourth down decisions, give Kellen Moore the offense. But overall, the head coach, they're winning in spite of him right now for sure. We've got 3 more shows for you. Getting ready for Tampa Bay coming up this week on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.